part of management is facing the tough facts. Part of management occasionally is holding up a mirror and telling people who don't like to hear that they don't have any clothes on, that they don't have any clothes on. They're the emperor without any clothes. And you need to point out people's strengths as well as their weaknesses. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that.
It's time for CX education. Welcome to the podcast for enterprise CX professionals, the people who want to connect with customers on their own terms, before, during, and after a purchase is made. In each episode, you'll learn how to create experiences your customers love. Ready? Here we go.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of CX Education. I'm Sunny Dhami, and this episode is brought to you by Cinch, a platform that helps businesses create mobile experiences customers love by connecting them with audiences on their own terms, when, where, and how they want. Today, our guest is Bill Eveleth, COO and CFO from GoLive SMS. Bill, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sunny. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, I am too. It'll be a great conversation. And Bill, you've got a very interesting and diverse background, I think, when it comes to your career. When researching for this episode, I think I saw that you've started and founded a consulting company, the Fractional CFO. Prior to that, you've held CFO roles in multi-billion-dollar companies. You've also authored 4 books, which vary from business and operations to stories and life lessons, which I found fascinating. But on top of that, you've also taught at college and university, which again is another very, very interesting part of your career. And that's a real impressive collection of accomplishments. And having done that bit of research, one thing I saw time and time again was a lot of people referring to you as a business expert, and having all of that experience that you've got. I'd be really interested to just listen to how you went on that journey. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about that career path and how you got into some of these very interesting jobs that you've had?
Sure, Sunny. I would look at myself as an opportunist. When I was early on in my career, I worked for Citicorp and I worked for AT&T. Combined, there was about 12 years there. And I would tell people I knew that I would never stay in a job more than 6 months if I didn't feel I was learning something. One of my neighbors used to say, "Bill, you can't hold a job, can you?" Even though I worked for the same company for 5 years, Citicorp. He knew I was always switching from one department to another. So I think personal growth and development, any way you can get it, is critically important. And I never quit learning. I never quit seeking education or new experiences. So I think that was a big part of my early career. And honestly, it continues on to this career today. As I grew through the corporate world, I eventually became a senior vice president at a Fortune 50 company and had over 500 professional people on my team. And when I left the corporate world, I was just ready to branch out on my own and started the Fractional CFO. Yeah, I was early to the game there. And in terms of fractional executives, there really wasn't such a thing that I knew of at the time, but it just sounded good to me. So I did get the domain, thefractionalcfo.com, which has proved quite lucky and fortuitous. I would add that that's perhaps another cornerstone of success, is if you can get in front of others, your probability of success increases significantly. And I've been doing the fractional CFO / business coaching consulting since 2004 and have that with a certain degree of success there. I currently have a number of clients ranging from publicly traded companies to fairly small companies. And certainly one of the things I've learned now is that the clients that I have all need help, all need an education, if you will, and they all need support in various aspects of their business. I specialize in finance, but I also work with them across many facets of their business. And one of the key things I see that people need is just help with running a team and managing people. And so I focus on that. I've focused on that in a couple of the books I've written, 2 books on operations management. And operations management is all about driving productivity in an organization, whether it's through machines or people. But the focus is always on people. You got to treat your people right. And your people have to treat you right, too. I give speeches occasionally to local groups like Rotary groups. And that's one of the things I'll say is the biggest problem I see with management and managers is that they don't manage. And what do I mean by that? Part of management is facing the tough facts. Part of management occasionally is holding up a mirror and telling people who don't like to hear that they don't have any clothes on, that they don't have any clothes on. They're the emperor without any clothes. And you need to point out people's strengths as well as their weaknesses. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. And so it's a major issue that I see. That's not the topic of today's session, but that would be one thing I would encourage listeners to think through is am I truly a manager, or am I just somebody here who's trying to be people's friends and really not driving the full productivity and the full potential production of this department that I'm managing? A little bit about me.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you for that introduction. I think although sort of people management and management isn't a core subject for this podcast, I think it's a very interesting element because from what I've seen, customer experience is obviously what we're focused on, but customer experience doesn't have to be the business's end customers. Your employees are also customers of your organization one way or another. So understanding and managing their experience and delivering a good experience for them is also very much part of customer experience, right? Ultimately, your employees and the people within an organization are face to face with your customers, with their customers. So making sure they are set up for success and have the tools, services, support. And I think one of the things you mentioned hits home very, very, very much for me is that growth and development. I think I also have a very similar outlook in the fact that I like to have growth and development in everything I'm doing. And I think a lot of people are very similar. So that, again, comes part of that customer experience for your employees, making sure they have got a growth trajectory or a plan that they can work toward, and whether they're working toward that in one way or another, or taking courses or learning in what they're doing is very important. So it's great that you have that as a focus and also teach that through your books and classes as well. So yeah, I think it definitely does play an important part in customer experience. One thing I'm really intrigued about is how you then got into teaching. So the professional route, completely can get that. You were looking for growth, looking for development, and always wanted to keep learning. How do you turn that passion to then wanting to teach?
It was an interesting trajectory. I was looking, this was about 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a couple of years after I started doing consulting work. And I felt again, like maybe there's another level that I need to take my skills to. Your level of competency and ability is going to determine how far you're going to go in life. And I thought maybe what I should do is I should get a PhD, and that would perhaps elevate my skills, the information and knowledge you get from getting a PhD, but also it's something on a piece of paper which looks pretty good. And so I was considering going through to get a PhD, and I live in Pensacola, Florida, and I was out at a networking event on Pensacola Beach, and I was talking to a fellow who was a vice chairman at the local college here, and he had a PhD, and I was just talking a little bit about going to get a PhD, and he kind of does one of these professorial things, and he goes, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" And I had a friend who was an adjunct professor once, and I was intrigued with it, but that's about as far as it's gone. And he said, "I'd like you to come by and talk to our dean of our business school and chat with her, and you guys see whether you can work something out. Maybe just kick the tires, teach a class and see what you think." And so I did that. And, my path sort of changed. First class I taught was Introduction to Business, and which I figured I could probably teach in my sleep. But I think I learned more teaching that class to 30 students than I probably would have learned at a number of classes in a PhD program, just going back to those basics. Well, again, continually learning. The path of teaching essentially took me from teaching at the local college to teaching at the graduate level for the University of Arkansas in their operations management program. And I taught for about 10 years. What happened was kind of in the pandemic time frame, the classes started all going online versus face-to-face. And I'm a face-to-face guy. I taught a couple of online classes. It really wasn't my thing. So as education transitioned, I sort of transitioned myself out of it. But yeah, I mean, that's a lesson there is, sometimes you have to keep your eyes open for opportunities. And be free to thinking about new ways of getting to the same endpoint. The endpoint that I wanted to get to was continue to increase my skills and my abilities and perhaps my credibility. And all of a sudden, this idea of teaching versus going to get a PhD came along, sounded good, and that's the direction I went. So don't be afraid to make a change if one comes along that sounds good. And you can do it quickly too. I did it, in an instant there. I said, all right, that sounds good. Went and talked to the gal, and I wouldn't change that for anything. So thank you for the question, Sonny.
That's firstly a great amount of confidence to just have the confidence to go in and go straight in and teach a class. But I think change is generally one of the biggest fear factors in life and in work as well. So being able to overcome that and not fear change and adopt and embrace it can definitely lead to a lot of new opportunities and adventures, perhaps. So in your most recent that's how sort of we have become sort of partners is as your role as COO and CFO at GoLive SMS. So they are one of your clients and you transition to have a bit more of a permanent role with them, but GoLive SMS are also one of Cinch's customers and you do buy and use products and services from Cinch. So how did sort of that transition come along from them being your customer and you consulting for them for you moving into a bit more of a permanent capacity with them? And what does that envisage? What do you do for GoLive SMS right now?
Well, I am their CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and their COO, Chief Operating Officer. It's a role that includes everything from working with our current clients to focusing on the strategy of the business. Where's the business going to be going down the road? So developing the strategic plan, understanding the financials of the business on a day in and day out basis, simple CFO things like doing a budget, I don't do the accounting work, but I have somebody that does the accounting work. An accountant does it. And reviewing the financials on a monthly basis with the management team. If there are shortfalls or wins, we celebrate the wins and we decide what we're going to do with the shortfalls. Having a solid list of KPIs that we use to understand what's going on in the business. The main focus of the business is customer service and support. But the main number we track is, of course, net profitability or net income. And so all of those things are important in what I do on the CFO side and on the operations side. It's really looking at where are we going to take this business and how are we going to get it there and how long is it going to take? And also looking at the competition. So, what's out there right now? Where do we need to go? I don't spend as much time focused on competition as a lot of people in my position do. I love the old Henry Ford quote where he said something to the effect of, if you're following the competition, he said, regards to customers, but if you're following the competition, they might be looking at developing a faster horse, and that's not what you want to do. You want to develop an automobile. I thought was quite insightful there. So again, back to that, if you're going to really win in business, you got to be out front. You got to be on the leading edge of where you want to take your business. And that's what I do with as a COO of GoLive is we really spend a lot of time thinking about where are the blue oceans? Where are the fields that people haven't gone to yet? And that's where we really want to compete. If you jump into the competitive mass and you try to do anything there, you can just get gobbled up in marketing expenses. And so we focus on the future and where we want to take the business.
So a very insightful approach there. And I think that kind of aligns with some of GoLive SMS's mission to focus on your customers and deliver personalized solutions to your customers. So it sounds as though you're constantly listening to your customers rather than looking at what everybody else is doing. And that's sort of taken you and brought you to where you are. And I think the GoLive SMS story is an interesting one in the fact that initially you were very much focused on the healthcare vertical and delivering messaging and communication services for that one vertical, became experts in it, and then actually looked at what else you can achieve. And as you said, some of that blue ocean thinking of there's a bigger world out there than just healthcare. What can we do for other industries? So you're now enabling that live communication between businesses and their users and delivering some of those improvements in customer experience. And I'd say healthcare specifically post COVID, but over the last few years has seen a big shift in the approach of customer experience. I'm obviously based here in the UK, and one of the issues we've had is just access to healthcare professionals has been difficult to get to, and the emergence of sort of mobile healthcare professionals being able to speak to a doctor on a video call or over the phone or through messaging has been a real advancement. And these are some of the solutions that you and your organization are able to deliver to healthcare, but also other industries right now. So what are the kinds of things that GoLive SMS are really working on and focused on outside of healthcare right now?
Great. Certainly you're right. That is the objective of the business, is to stay on the leading edge of what people are looking for. That's a good example with healthcare. I would say that one thing that we've done, been in works over the last few years, we've had it for a number of years, but we've ensured that our system is absolutely at the highest level of data security. We have a certification called High Trust, which is very difficult to get and unusual to have for a business of our size. We've gone through the efforts and spent the money, and we continue to go through the efforts and spend the money. It's not like one and done. It's continually being tested there. So we see that as a cornerstone to our success, that we have to really be able to convince our customers that their data is fully secure in the GoLive system. So we pride ourselves in that as a unique selling proposition for GoLive versus the competition. So it's a very important. In fact, it's almost required in the medical field. And in the other areas that we work, we find that in employee communication, for instance, we find that a lot of the employers we work with also very much enjoy the fact that they will receive data security in working with GoLive, and they don't have to worry about hackers into the system or system glitches, which are going to give away confidential information or things like that. So there's a foundation that every business needs to lay to help to execute its strategy. That's an example of one of the pieces of the foundation that GoLive has laid. So where are we going? Well, another thing I'd say about healthcare is we've had certain healthcare clients for 10 years, 15 years. We're very sticky. I think the reason people stay with us so long is that we just deliver. A couple weeks ago, I had a call at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. People had some issues. They had to get something done the next day. We figured it out. We got a great IT team. The CEO of the company, a fellow named Mike, he's very involved in the business. We got on the phone, we fixed the problem, and the next day they wouldn't know there was ever an issue. So we're very customer centric and customer focused, and that customer experience that you talk about is critically important to us. Where we're going with GoLive is in a number of directions, but certainly one of the areas that we see a substantial amount of future growth is in employee communications, whether it's, simple things like an employee wants to know whether they can take vacation, pick a date, and they need to know if they have enough PTO, paid time off, and they want to know whether that would be approved through their supervisors. Well, they can just send a text in, get a response back that says yes or no. We can automate it through APIs, go right into the HR system of the company that we're working with. They can put business rules in place or rules in place. If the employee has it, if no one else has scheduled this, then give them a yes answer. I'll put some logic into it. And that's one example of some of the ways that we're going to be using or are using, frankly, computer to computer conversations to get people out of it so that we can answer questions quickly and efficiently and accurately for people asking the questions. Employee communications is something as simple as a text that maybe a CEO wants to send out on a major function or something that's happening within a company. They can do that through a whole, through their old database and do it almost instantaneously. Certainly one of the things we really like about text messaging is that 90% of the text messages received are read within 5 minutes. Text messaging we see as a very efficient and effective form of communication, whether it's in marketing or whether it's in employee communication or patient communication. One of the things that we've had in the platform is a bilateral conversation between pharmacists and patients, where a pharmacist patient might think, can I take this pill with that pill? And it'll go into probably pharmacy text, but it'll go into a data center. And instead of them having to pick up the phone and call and do it, they can do it via text and get the answer back. It costs pennies on the dollars to process that transaction versus a voice conversation. We're excited about where we're going, and we're excited about the future. Text messaging is at least a 30-year-old technology. SMS text messaging, but people are finding new uses for it all the time. And one of the things I used to teach is the cycle of business, which would say that every product's going to go through the initial phase, the growth phase, maturity phase, and the decline phase. And in this world, it's happening quicker and quicker. Well, SMS text messaging is one of those counterintuitive products that seem to have reached anywhere near its mature level yet. And we're certainly encouraged by that. MMS messages too, which are messages with a little more flair to them, a picture or something like that attached to it. But yeah, we're excited about SMS. We're excited about the future of it. We certainly do voice communication, and we do email communication and others. But our bread and butter is the good old SMS message.
Yeah. You touched on some great points there, and I think you touched again on the employee experience and how improving and simplifying that just makes an employee's life easier, so they can do the things that they want to do rather than be bogged down by admin and things that shouldn't take as long as they do. So great to see that while driving initiatives forward in that area. And I completely agree with you on SMS. It is a product that keeps on going and keeps on giving. And I think the key to that is the continued rise of mobile devices and the fact that everything now is focused on that mobile device. So actually, to get that back and forth interaction with somebody, the easiest way to do that is on your mobile device. And as a consumer, as an end user, for me, I want my problem solved quickly. So the pharmacist example you gave me, if I'm potentially taking some medication, I want that answer as quickly as possible, not in 3 to 5 business days. I want a response on the device I'm using straight away. So that for me is that improved experience. And if your healthcare provider or healthcare provider A offers me that, whereas healthcare provider B offers me a phone line or another method of communication, which is as quick, then I'm always, as a personal opinion, I'm always going to go to healthcare provider A. So I think that really does drive the focus on that experience and what we expect and how we expect to get it. So that's super interesting. I think one of the other things that really interested me about you when I did a little bit more research was that one of your focuses from your consultant perspective is to go in and understand your customers' problems. But actually, one of the statements you make is that you don't have any good advice for them, but actually you have a question for them. And that's, what are your challenges and what are you doing about them? And then you sort of break that down. And for me, that's such a great way to focus on any one thing. So whether you're looking at customer experience, employee experience, career progression, what is the challenge or the problem you're facing? So is that something that works for you very well? And is that a bit of a light bulb moment for your customers when you do sit down and break it down for them like that?
I really thought I always had to be the smartest guy in the room. I had to have all of the answers. And shame on me. And I guess as I grew older, I thought, well, number one, I really don't want to have to work that hard. And I found that if people solve the problem themselves, they're going to be much more apt to implement it and to do it with zest and zeal. And so that's the questions are the answer. That's what I teach consultants that work on my team, and I firmly believe it. And don't go in and say, okay, well, tell me about what's going on. And then say, okay, well, these are the 6 things you need to do. Go make it happen. I can help if you need. That's not good consulting. You don't make lasting change with that approach. In my opinion, what you want to do is you want to go in. What are the key things you're focused on in this business? What could you improve? What's going wrong? Okay, good. How would you do that? How would you improve it? Makes sense. Should we get started on that? So again, it's questions. And you get into whatever level of detail you want. And then they say, well, yeah, why did I just pay you? I could have figured that stuff out. But yeah, I firmly believe that don't go in and think you have the question. You really have the answers. Not that. Sometimes when if somebody comes to me and says, okay, well, I have a situation and I want to know if you have a solution. Then yeah, absolutely. You can say, well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And we have a product that I think will solve this problem for you. Yeah, it's a little different when you're selling a product or a service than when you're selling consulting services. It's okay to have the answer being your product, but you want to understand what their needs are first. Your prospects' needs are, or your customers' needs, before you make recommendations.
So, Bill, you talk a lot about the experience that you have with your customers and what GoLive SMS has been able to do. What would be really interesting is to touch maybe an example or something that either GoLive have done or a partner that you've worked with that really helped drive that. And one of the examples you mentioned was one of your customers calling you at 10 o'clock on a Friday. For me, that really showcases going over and above. And that as a customer experience for me is phenomenal, right? If you are willing to get out of bed and put your laptop back on and start working to make sure my problem's solved, I end up holding you in a much higher regard, and my loyalty to you and your organization then sticks. Are there any other examples that you've worked in that you feel really showcase some of those great CX examples?
Yeah, I think, customer experience in general, people don't necessarily pay enough attention to it, but it really is, I think, the one thing that deepens the relationship between a customer and their suppliers, so that it doesn't, the situation isn't always about just cost or what is this costing me, but it's about that relationship and what are they providing me, and can I rely on that vendor when the chips are down. And I think a good example is in GoLive's experience with Cinch. I love the Cinch team. I've had a number of situations over the last couple of years since I've been with GoLive where I've needed help with certain things. Some of them were impacting my customers. One thing I absolutely think Cinch does that, frankly, some of your competitors don't, and I have a person I can call. Her name's Mary, and I can pick up the phone and I can get a hold of Mary. Certainly during business hours, I've never needed her at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. But anytime I send her an email or call her, she gets right back to me pretty quickly. And I've received emails from her starting with things like, I'm up in the Poconos this weekend. We'll get this problem solved for you. And she'll stick with it until it's solved. I hate to interrupt people during their vacations, but she's always willing to help out. So that's probably the thing I like most about Cinch. One of the reasons I've driven more and more of our volume to Cinch is because I have that person. And it's not just the person. We don't have, tea party meetings where we're just chatting. We have, sometimes you start with that, but then we have substantive things that we're talking about. And I have problems and she solves my problems for me, or she's the face of Cinch and Cinch solves my problems for me. She also does things like I have another aggregator that we work with, and sometimes they're not as responsive. And I had a situation with a customer that honestly is on the other aggregator. I just needed a quick answer from somebody in the industry who really knew what the answer was. Couldn't get a hold of my other aggregator. I got a hold of Mary and she gave me the answer. So, one of the things I'm looking at doing is not moving from that particular aggregator, but I have another aggregator that I'm looking at moving our volume to Cinch, really just because of that customer experience. There's a lot of people out there that do the job and do it well, but that the customer experience adds that top 10%, which really deepens the relationship. So I applaud Cinch for having people like Mary on their team to really be there for their customers when they're needed.
Well, thank you, Bill. That's brilliant to hear from a very biased perspective from myself. It's lovely to hear great news about Cinch, but also kudos to Mary. She's obviously doing a tremendous job with you and the team. But I think the point you raised there is that final 10%, some experiences really help you build a longer standing relationship with Cinch in this example, and also is generating and driving more business. So the value of customer experience is not only making things easier for our customers, it's also driving additional revenue and additional business. So really glad that it's working well for you. And again, a shout out to Mary. You're doing a tremendous job. Well, Bill, I think we're out of time for today's conversation. It's been really enlightening for me. I've loved learning your career and your approach to things, and also your focus on your customers in your current role. So thank you very much for the time today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you. I do appreciate your time, Sunny.
Brilliant. And for our listeners, if you do want to find out a little bit more about what GoLive SMS have been doing, we have got a case study on the Cinch website. So do go onto the Cinch website and have a look at some of the great things that GoLive SMS have been doing and how Cinch can help empower some of those interactions with GoLive SMS customers. But for now, that's the end of today's episode. And we look forward to speaking to you and from you hearing from us again on our next episode. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
That's it for this episode of CX Education. Thanks for joining us. This show is brought to you by Cinch, the technology company that helps you create mobile experiences your customers love. Did you enjoy the episode? Then make sure to subscribe to CX Education wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit cinch.com/podcast to get instant access to all the latest episodes.